I am a contract employee. That is the right description for me. Okay. Let me put it this way, that just as there are, different shades of goodness or different shades of wickedness or whatever, people are complex. You see, look, your own dealing or your own relationship with the members of your family in the same family could be different at different points of time, isn't it? We are not static in our thinking. You see, look, when it comes to a particular point, this is when you are in decision making, you often find, different kinds of coalitions which form at different times. You see, in a company or in government, there may be a time when for taking a particular decision, you may be able to garner support of a large number of people. But the same people may not support you in another matter. Therefore, what I am trying to convey to you is that all politicians, believe me, they are not corrupt. Just as all of us are either, Snow White or Lily White or pure or something. Certainly not. Human beings are very complex. And depending upon the situation, their attitude, their conduct, their decisions will differ. So, don't you believe or can't you believe that goodness will generate goodness? You must have heard that old Tolstoy story about somebody trying to clean a table with a dirty cloth and not succeeding in that. I believe that if your intentions are clear, you are now not trying to score a point over other person, and you are transparent in what you say, what you do, and you will say the same thing to A and B, whether he belongs to this or that party or whatever. I think people tend to accept you. I have had the privilege of working with different kinds of political people. And you believe me, I never had the occasion to what do I say? I don't know. I was not at any point of time driven to a point where, look, I found it impossible to go along. And if I find that it is impossible for me to go along, then I should say thank you very much. But you believe me, there are still today really good people in politics, as in every other sphere, who want to do good to the state, to the country, to the people. But if you ask me, are you justifying all what is being done? I am not. I am saying that you have to judge people based on what they do from time to time. So personally, I believe that the qualities in you as a civil servant or as a manager or as a professor or as a scientist would and should, I believe, attract attention in a positive manner, and you will be able to generate positive responses from the people with whom you work.
Sir, I'm Ria. So I'm a second year student of the PG program. Sir, my question relates to your answer to Fatima's question. You were saying that all the politicians are not corrupt. Sir, then why is the Janpal Lokpal bill not being implemented or not being sanctioned, sir?
Good.
And there's one more part to my question. I would like to know your personal opinion about. I would like to know your personal opinion about Anna Hazare's efforts, also, sir.
Well, my dear Ria, Anna Hazare is a great man. I am a very, 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 very small person. So I can't comment on Sri Anna Hazare. You forgive me for that. He's a big man. I'll come back to. Let me try. See, let me be honest with you. I said I am a contract employee, still I am an employee of the government. So I have certain limitations which I have to keep in mind. So against that background, keeping that in mind, you consider what I am going to say. Number one, most of us talk about Lokpal, Lokayukta, etc. without, I'm sorry to say this, exactly knowing what it is all about. I don't want to say that you have no idea. You have some ideas. All of us have some ideas. What we believe is that this country is full of corrupt people, particularly the politicians and the bureaucrats and sundry other people. They are all corrupt, and because of their corruption, the development of the country is not taking place. Because of their corruption, people are denied food, water, electricity. All the ills in this world, or at least in India, are on account of corrupt politicians, corrupt bureaucrats, and officers of sundry other designations or characteristics. They are all painted with the brush corrupt. That's it. So on the one side, you have this group of corrupt people who are ruining this country, and on the other, you have a group of people who are the saviors of this country. This is the way in which it is presented, isn't it? You be honest to yourself. We tend to believe, at least some of us tend to believe, that all the ills of India, whether it is a drought, whether it is a flood, whether it is an earthquake, whether it is a tsunami, all this is on account of, the corrupt politicians, the corrupt civil servants, the corrupt engineers, and the corrupt whatnot. And on this side, we have another group of people who are saviors of this country. There will be no tsunami, no corruption, nothing. This is the picture which generally is painted. And the next step, when suggestions are made that a Lokpal, an institution called the Lokpal, which you would have read in newspapers, Shri Anna Hazare and his group had proposed a legislation to create what is called a Lokpal. I don't know how many of you have seen the small print, but basically you know what it is all about. Now, that legislation, as I said in the beginning, without knowing that you are going to ask me this question, I started by saying that India is a functioning democracy. It is not like in the city-states of Greece. It is not that the citizens gather, they raise their hands and decide that this man is to be guillotined or that law is to be passed. It's not so. We are a country of 1.2 billion people. And the number of voters in this country exercise their franchise for elections to how many levels of representative government? The panchayat, the block panchayat, the Zilla panchayat, the municipalities, the state government and the Parliament of India. All these are elected bodies. And what do? What is their mandate? They are supposed to legislate. They are supposed to make laws which will govern us. Even in this hall, even in this institution, there are certain rules and regulations which have the sanctity of the authority which is competent to pronounce them. In the case of a democracy, in the case of a representative democracy like ours, it is the elected representatives of the people who decide what should be the law. And we civil servants and officers of the state and central governments and the institutions of governance under that, we are supposed to be implementing those. And there is the judicial system, starting with the munsifs and the sub-judge, the district magistrate and the session judge, the High Court and the Supreme Court, which will ensure that the executive authority vested in the ministers, in the officers, is exercised in accordance with the law passed by the parliament. So if there is a deviation, the court can strike it down. Whoever he or she is, they are all subject to what we know as the rule of law. And before the eyes of law, all of us are equal. It is not just theory, it is in practice. You read in the newspapers, the highest in this country is subject to the law laid down by the court, the interpretation given by the court on the laws of this land. Therefore, what I am trying to drive at is, whether it is A, B or C, I don't want to take names. We are free to propose to the lawmakers what we think should be the law of this land. But we can't decide it in a street corner meeting. That's not the way in which democracy functions. Nowhere in the world, including India. And Indian democracy, by all accounts, is a very vibrant and a very active and a very functioning democracy. So, through the democratic process, the Lokpal, the Lok Ayukt, whatever that is, something more than that, something less than that, whether it is a land law, whether it is a law on sedition, whether it is a law on this or that, all these laws will be the enactments of either the state legislature or the legislature at the central, which is the Parliament of India. So, the Lokpal legislation is before the Parliament, which is the supreme lawmaking body in this country, and it is up to the lawmakers, the Parliament of this country, who represent, let me underline that, the will of the people. Every 5 years they have to renew their mandate. It is not like some other country where, after 5 years you have this rule, that rule. No. For the last more than 60 years, elections are held regularly in our country. And the electorate has the freedom. The electorate has demonstrated it to change a government if the electorate is convinced that the government of the day was not going according to their wishes, their mandate. We see it regularly, every 5 years as it were, like a clockwork in the state of Kerala. If the Kerala government of a given time is not going according to the wishes of the people, at the end of that 5-year term, the people of Kerala can choose a different set of people to govern. So, my dear Ria, the Lokpal, the Lok Ayukt, whatever the name of that legislation is, for a fact it is before the supreme legislative authority of this country, which I am sure would take the right decisions to enact an appropriate legislation.